Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Creative Adventures. If you can't tell, I am soaping today, but this is not just any old soap. I'm actually making a shaving soap today. I'm really excited about this. I wanted to make something for shaving specifically, mostly for my husband, because he does like to buy fancy jarred shaving lathers that he uses a brush with, and so I wanted to try making one for him. He actually really likes all the soaps I've been making, and we have exclusively switched to using homemade soaps now. We're not actually buying soap anymore. So I wanted to make something for him that he could use for shaving, and it's not like I couldn't use this either if I wanted to. We're going to be making this soap to pour in these little 8-ounce bale jars. These are plastic jars with non-rusting metal that can go right in the shower or sit out by the sink, and I have a little shaving brush to go with them. This is a pretty small recipe, even though I have a crap load of oils sitting out over here. We're not going to use much of them. We're only going to be making 4 of these jars with this recipe. This recipe actually comes from Anne-Marie of Soap Queen TV and the founder of Brambleberry. All of these ingredients, including the jars and the shaving brush, if you want to get them from there, can be purchased from Brambleberry. I'll leave a link to my blog in the description below that has all the details of what you will need for this recipe, and I will link to Soap Queen's video on this recipe up in this corner. So definitely go check that out. So what all's going into this recipe today? For my oils, I've got palm oil, coconut oil, rice bran oil, and castor oil. I've also got 2 butters. This one's gonna have cocoa butter and avocado butter, which is an ingredient that I have not used yet. Cocoa butter is you've seen me use this in other recipes. I've used it in my lip balm recipe. It's a hard, dry, crumbly butter, and this actually adds to the hardness of the overall product. Avocado butter, however, is soft. As you can see, I'm mashing right into that. It's a soft, creamy butter, and this one, from everything I have read, provides really, really nice moisturizing, conditioning properties to the soap. It also has some natural sunscreen effects to it and a lot of vitamins as well. So this is going to be a really, really nice soap. Another additive we're putting in this is bentonite clay. This particular clay adds to the slick feeling of the shaving soap, which is exactly what you want with a shaving soap. You want your razor to glide over it, so that's what the clay is for. This recipe is going to have a pretty high percentage of coconut oil, but it's going to have a really high percentage of rice bran oil. Both of these 2 things combined provide a really, really nice, stable lather. So this will be a really, really nice, lathery, slick, cold process soap that's going to be perfect for shaving. So what else do I have here? Of course, I've got my lye. Off camera here, I've got my sodium lactate and my 99% alcohol. For our fragrance, we're going to be using 2 essential oils, patchouli and spearmint. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a huge fan of patchouli, but with these 2 fragrances together, I actually really like how they smell combined. If you've got sensitive skin, you might want to leave fragrance oil out altogether for this. We're not going to add any colorants to this. And I've also got, of course, my distilled water over here. So for my equipment, it's all just my standard stuff. I've got my scale here, my safety equipment, my lye measuring container, which is just a Pyrex glass jar, or Pyrex jar, an assortment of measuring spoon, spatula, whisk, stick blender, glass cups for measuring out my fragrances and my lye, and then my trusty chemical mixing bucket. Oh, and my thermometer. So a couple of notes about this recipe. We're not adding, like I said, we're not adding any colorants to this or trying to do any fancy swirls. Because we're going to be using these bale jars, that means the soap will actually not have air around the sides, which means normally it would take a lot longer to cure. To kind of counteract that, Anne-Marie formulated this recipe with, number 1, a pretty big water discount, a 15% water discount, because the less water you have in your recipe, the less time it takes to cure. We're going to be using cocoa butter, which will help the bar harden, and this bentonite clay actually accelerates trace, so it's going to come to trace pretty quickly. So all in all, with the adjustments to the recipe and the additives that we're using, this should still only take 4 to 6 weeks to cure in this jar. We're just going to need to let it cure with the lid open so that it can get as much air as possible. All right, so with that, let me clean up my space and move everything out of the way. We'll go ahead and measure out our essential oils, our lye water, and our oils for the soap, and we'll get started soaping. Alright, we have got all of our oils melted down. They've been cooling for just a little bit. I'm gonna put my gloves back on, get my goggles back on. Alright, our oils are at about 120, 118, and our lye water over here is down to about 115, so that's perfect. Again, we're not adding any color to this. We're not trying to do anything fancy. These are just going straight into our little bell jars over here. So even though I have recently been soaping a lot cooler than this, it really doesn't matter for this recipe. So we're gonna go ahead and soap at about 120, 115, 120. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually go ahead and, per Anne Marie's directions, add the bentonite clay directly into my oils. Normally you would disperse your clay into your distilled water first, or into some distilled water first, but because we're curing this soap in jars and we don't want to add any extra water to our recipe if at all possible, we're just going to disperse it right into our oils. But we're going to do that before we add our lye in. So let me get my stick blender out over here, and we're going to be adding a tablespoon of this bentonite clay to our oils. Just gonna go ahead and put that right in. I'm gonna kind of tamp it down so it doesn't blow up in the air, and give these a quick blend. Make sure you don't have any clumps of that clay in there. Now again, this bentonite clay is going to very quickly speed up trace, and we're also using a very significant water discount. So this is probably going to come together very quickly. So we're gonna add our lye water first, give that a few blends, and then we're gonna add our essential oil mixture over here. And this should not take long at all, we'll see. Yeah, we're already at a light trace. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in my fragrances here and give those a quick blend with the stick blender. And that is all the mixing I'm gonna do. We're definitely somewhere between a light and medium trace now. So let me go ahead and scrape off my stick blender. That out of the way. Oh, it's thickening up real quick. So I've already got my bell jars open and ready to go. Holy cow, that is moving fast. So we're just gonna try to not make a mess and pour these right in. Look at that. Perfect amount. All right, let's shake these out. Give them a good tamp down. Get them as evened out as possible, even though they're already setting up on me. Nice. Look how easy that was. It's already setting up, as you can see. It's not really moving around at this point. But there is our finished shaving soap. Now there's not gonna be a cut of this, obviously, because this is in a jar. So we're gonna let this cure for 4 to 6 weeks. And once they're ready to be used, all you have to do is dip your shaving brush into a little water, swirl it around on top, and it's gonna make this really nice, creamy lather. And it's gonna be perfect for gliding a razor over the skin. Oh man, and it smells, I'm not a huge fan of patchouli, but with the spearmint, and we use a little more patchouli than spearmint because the spearmint smells so strong. But the two of them together are actually a really nice, like, fresh combination. The spearmint really does mask that weirdness of the patchouli, but the patchouli kind of tempers the spearmint just a little bit too. So I think this will feel really, really nice on the skin. It definitely smells nice and refreshing. This would wake you up for sure. So if you're a morning shaver, this would be a good one for you. So yeah, we're gonna set this off to the side, leave the lid open for curing so that it at least gets a little bit of air, and we'll be able to use this in 4 to 6 weeks. This may be one of those soaps that I actually do come back and show you a usage video just because I think this is gonna be so neat. So I hope you enjoyed watching. It's been another episode of Creative Adventures. I will leave a link to my blog down in the description below, and including all of the ingredients, where you can get them, including these little barrel jars and the shaving brush. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any comments on this video or suggestions for future videos, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time.